Some years there are updates that completely suspend an entire category. Others you get something like the $399 plus Apple Watch Series 9 and $799 Ultra 2 steady improvements that technically add up to the best Apple Watches we have ever seen. Just not by a whole lot, and not if you have already got a recent Apple Watch model. It makes sense that 2023's updates are quite compared to last year when Apple effectively kicked down the door with not one, not two, but three new smartwatches. This year, the Series 9 and Ultra 2 are nearly identical in design to their predecessors, save new colors, strap options, and carbon-neutral packaging. Instead, the big updates this year are the S9 SiP, the addition of a second-generation ultra-wideband chip, and watchOS 10. The former promises a 30% faster GPU and a 4-core neural engine with twice the performance of the Series 8. That in turn enables onboard Siri processing, greater power efficiency, and the handy double-tap gesture. The upgraded UWB chip enables precision finding, much like AirTags. Meanwhile, watchOS 10 reintroduces widgets to Apple's smartwatch landscape. The Aluminum Series 9 comes in a new pink color, and as far as design goes, that's all that's visibly new. Otherwise, you are looking at the same design and 41mm by 45mm sizes as the Series 8 and the Series 7 before that. Pink is easily the best new color Apple's introduced for the watch in years. First, it's actually pink, unlike the green Series 7, which only looked green if the light hit just right. Second, this is the year of our queen and savior Barbie. Technically, it's more millennium pink than Barbie pink, but that's probably a good thing. Normally, I catch about how Apple shies away from saturated color, but the extra subtlety here makes for a more versatile watch. Depending on the strap, you can either emphasize or de-emphasize the pinkness for whatever the situation calls for. The Ultra 2 is even harder to differentiate from the Ultra. When I got my hands on at Apple Park, a representative advised I stow my Ultra in my bag lest I accidentally leave it behind. Even the back crystal on the Ultra 2 just reads Ultra, unlike the series watches, which always specify which series they are. This entire week, I have had really on very minimal signs of wear and tear on my original Ultra to tell these two watches apart. Even less visible is the fact that Apple is using more recycled materials in both the Series 9 and Ultra 2. The Sport Loop, for example, is made of 82% recycled yarn, up from 0%. The Aluminum Series 9 is made from 100% recycled aluminum, while the Ultra 2 is made from 95% recycled titanium. The speckled flex in silicone Nike straps you will see throughout this review are also recycled. Apple also sent me its fine woven strap, which is made of 68% post-consumer recycled material and is meant to act as a leather alternative because Apple doesn't do leather anymore. Fine woven is fine, it's kinda like suede, soft and little fuzzy if you scrape it with a nail. It shows the scratch like suede would. It's hard to say whether it will develop a patina, as I simply haven't had it long enough, but I wouldn't recommend working out on it. I thought the strap was fetching on my stainless steel 45mm review unit, but the texture was a lot more polarizing among my co-workers. Most said they weren't fans but couldn't attribute why. If you are debating getting one, I would swing by an Apple store first to get a feel for it first. I never like it when gadget companies say a new processor makes things a lot better, unless you have a very laggy device. Minute improvements in performance are hard for the average person to see. Granted, processor specs matter more with Android smartwatches because they have historically been plagued by laggy screens and performance issues. But with the Apple Watch, this has been less of a problem. That said, there are a few instances where you can see the slight difference the S9 makes. First off, the new improved neural engine on the S9 chip means Siri processing happens on device. That it turn purportedly leads to 25% better dictation and the ability to issue Siri commands when offline. Later this year, you will also be able to ask Siri health-related queries. To test the improved Siri, I ran two experiments. First, I dictated several long texts, tongue twisters, as well as Bohemian Rhapsody and Alphabet Aerobics lyrics and sent them to my best friend. For the tongue twister and song lyrics, I simultaneously dictated to an S8 powered Ultra and S9 powered Series 9. You can check the gallery above the screenshot of the results. It's impressive that both watches got about 95% accuracy, but I didn't see a huge difference between the results. With text featuring Korean words, Siri did an admirable job for more common words like bulgogi, but still messed up some names of our favorite K-pop singers and actors. It's not a perfect test, but for me that means I still have to enunciate clearly when using foreign words in English, aka Konglish. That said, I have used actor Mahershala Ali name as a Siri litmus test over the past few years. Back in 2018 and 2019, Siri would often get tripped up on it. I'm happy to say this year it nailed it 100% of the time. What might be more useful in this fact that you can issue Siri basic tasks when you have no internet or cellular connectivity. For example, I was able to ask Siri to set timers and workouts with airplane mode enabled both on the watch and on my iPhone. Say your laundry room is in the basement, your hands are full with a laundry basket and you forgot your iPhone upstairs. You can now ask Siri to set a timer and not to worry about it. This won't work 100% of the time when Siri has to pull information from the internet. However, but if you do get a weather update preloaded from when you had internet, I found that Siri can still give you an update. The S9 chip also results in greater power savings, but you should already know that Apple Siri invested that somewhere other than better battery life. In this case, Apple decided to make the displays brighter. The Series 9 now goes up to 2000 nits from 1000 nits, while the Ultra 2 is 50% brighter at 3000 nits. Indoors and outdoors, it's difficult to tell the difference if you don't have older models on hand for comparison. And even if you do, as I did, it can still be difficult to tell under certain lighting conditions. That's because Apple makes ample use of the ambient light sensor. Just because you can manipulate the Series 9 or Ultra 2 to go up to a maximum brightness doesn't mean the watch is giving you everything it's got. It's dependent on your environment, which is to give your eyes a break and save battery. You are most likely to see the difference outside on a very sunny day. Perhaps the most novel update to the Series 9 and Ultra 2 is the double tap gesture. The pinchy pinch, it's similar to double clicking with a mouse, except you are making a pinching motion with your index finger and thumb. It will come via software updates sometime in October, but Apple sent us a separate Series 9 loaded with a beta version of the feature, so I could give it a whirl. Technically speaking, this tech isn't new. The watchOS 8 Apple debuted Assistive Touch, an accessibility feature for those with limb differences, and Double Tap uses the same underlying technology. The sensors can detect changes in blood flow when the muscles in your forearm move, and that in turn allows you to control the device and navigate menus with one hand. That said, Double Tap and Assistive Touch are not quite the same thing. For starters, Assistive Touch is more power intensive as it's run directly on the CPU, while Double Tap's algorithms has been optimized to run in the background via the S9's neural engine. That's also why Assistive Touch is something you have to set up, whereas the Double Tap is enabled system-wide by default. Plus, Assistive Touch supports a wider range of gestures like a single tap or fist flange, and you can customize what certain gestures do. It has to be that way because it's designed for you to navigate the entire Apple Watch single-handedly. Double tap is meant to be more contextual way to handle the primary actions of an app. For example, say you get a text, if you double tap it will bring up the ability to reply via voice messages. Double tapping again will send the message. For a timer, double tapping once will pause the timer. Doing it again will unpause it. When the timer goes off, pinching will stop the timer. I have also used it to control the camera shutter, control my music, snooze alarms, scroll through watch times, widget stack, and answer or end calls. This is an excellent feature, but it's not without its quirks. For the one thing, it comes with a learning curve. For it to work, you must first to do the raise to wake gesture. You also have to learn the timing. Too fast or too slow won't work, and between selecting actions, there's slight pause. When I was first trying out demos at Apple Park, I was definitely too fast and aggressive. Once I have got my review in it, however, I got the hang of it relatively quickly. It's also not the best at multitasking. If you navigate away from a timer, for example, you won't be able to just double tap to pause or restart while it's running in the background. Once it goes off, you can double tap again since it's back at the forefront. The same goes for snoozing alarms. You will probably have to use Siri or your other hand if you have got lot going on at once. Another thing, I wish it were slightly more customizable. Apple designed this to be intuitive, but not everyone will think double tap ought to be the same thing. I get why in the Messages app the gesture will bring up a voice reply. However, I would love if I could use it to scroll through quick text replies, select one and send it. Apple is aware of this, as you can customize what the double tap will do for music playback and the smart widget stack. For instance, you can decide whether the gesture will pause or play a track or skip it. For the smart stack, you can decide between scrolling through widgets or selecting the first one you have got pinned up top. Overall, there's more to like about double tap than not. It quietly literally turns the Apple Watch from a two-handed device into one that can be used single-handedly like a smartphone. If you have got an Apple Watch, then you have undoubtedly had an instance when your hands were occupied and you had to use your nose to select a button. This solves that. Frankly, I firmly believe it will change the way we interact with wearables going forward. I also dig that you don't have to use your index finger. The feature also works with your middle finger and pinky fingers, though it may not work quite as well with the later two. Even so, it's greater that you have alternatives in the event you lose or break your index finger. Apple isn't the first to come out with a gesture-based smartwatch feature. Samsung has also something very similar to Assistive Touch for its Galaxy watches. That said, Apple's taking it a step further and making this part of the default system interface. It's a powerful example of how much accessible design benefits everyone. I hope Apple continues to iterate and improve on this feature and that other smartwatch makers follow suit. Some of us never misplace our phones. Precision finding on the Series 9 and Ultra 2 is not for those people. This is for those of us who ring our phones multiple times a day and lose them in odd places. True story, I once left my phone inside my fridge while dazed, hungry and confused at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. Precision finding on the Apple Watch is similar to how you find AirTags with your phone. At first, it brings up the control panel and ring your phones like normal. Once you are within range of your phone, you will see an approximate distance and some directional guidance. When you are within 6 feet, you will hear another beep from your phone. To test the feature, my co-worker sent me on a scavenger hunt in our office. He hid an iPhone 14 Pro Max paired with an Ultra in one area and an iPhone 15 paired with a Series 9 in another. Although I heard the iPhone 14 Pro Max ring first, it was incredibly faint and I didn't really have a clue where it could be. After meandering around, the Series 9 was able to pick up a signal once I was within roughly 50 feet. It was super easy to find my iPhone 15. After that, the whole thing only took about 3 minutes. Finding the iPhone 14 Pro Max was trickier since I had to rely on sound. Our office layout is maze-like, so my Ultra lost connection fairly frequently because of all the walls. It took about double the time to find the iPhone 14 Pro Max. We also tested the feature outside, and this time the range extended to roughly 80 feet on an account of all the open space. That said, it had a hard time getting a precise lock when my friend was actively moving around with the iPhone 15. Instead, an icon pops up letting you know that the phone is currently in motion. In other words, this feature works better if your phone is stationary. But as much as I love this feature, it requires that your phone also has the new second generation UWB chip, which means it's limited to the iPhone 15 lineup. So if you plan on upgrading only your Apple Watch, this isn't a feature you are going to have right away. Also, for now, it's limited to your phone only. You can't use this Find an AirTag with your Series 9 or Ultra 2. WatchOS 10 rethinks how you will interact with the Apple Watch, and would you look at that, Apple finally did something about the app grid. Apple's native apps have been redesigned so they are more glanceable and there's a hell of lot less scrolling. The controls have also been reconfigured. Swiping up no longer brings up the control panel but a list of widgets. To get the control panel, you now have to press the side button while double pressing the crown brings up your recent apps. However, there are a few watch faces that we didn't get to see in the beta: a solar analog phase and new modular ultra phase. The solar analog phase is on the simpler side. Its main thing is that the light trail behind the second hand changes from light to dark depending on whether it's day or night. The modular phase is exclusive to the Ultra and Ultra 2 but is a dream for data nerds, aka me. You can pack in 7 complications, 6 small ones and a larger one in the center. The bezel can also show either elevation, depth or seconds in the real time. Like DoubleTap, WatchOS 10 is one of those updates that has larger implications for how we will interact with the Apple Watch down the road. Together, these two updates make the Apple Watch much more glanceable and distinct from a mini phone on your wrist. Meanwhile, cellular capability and the fact that Siri now works more seamlessly offline give you a device that's more independent of your phone. There's a shift happening here, but Apple isn't busting down the door like the cool aid man. It's a gentle shift where Apple puts down some building blocks, sits back and waits to see what people build with it. Iterative updates aren't bad, they are just not flashy, but that's the biggest problem facing the Series 9 and Ultra 2. These are the best smartwatches Apple's ever made, but while the updates do make the overall experience better, it's like paying another dollar to add an extra topping to your pizza. For some people, that makes the pizza. For others, it's nice but really not necessary, and of course, smartwatches cost hundreds of dollars. If you have a Series 7 or later, you don't really need to update. For owners with a Series 5 or earlier, it might be worth it since you will get a bigger screen, several new sensors, and a processing bump. Series 6 owners are the ones I see being most on the fence, and to those folks, I mostly encourage upgrades if your battery life isn't cutting it anymore. For folks with an Ultra, seriously cool your jets. You are getting the modular Ultra watch face with WatchOS 10 and 3000 nits versus 2000 nits doesn't make a huge difference. Otherwise, the biggest case I can make for an upgrade is if you must have double tap, either because you have got minor dexterity issue or think it will be the coolest thing since sliced bread. If you are on the fence, I suggest trying assistive touch out for an afternoon to see whether you like the idea of using gesture. That said, if you don't often find yourself tapping your Apple Watch with your nose, that probably isn't a feature you'd need right away. But speaking frankly, Apple did not make these watches for folks looking to upgrade. It made them for people who don't have an Apple Watch already, and it's still true that the majority of people buying Apple Watches each year are new to the platform. For those folks, these are the latest and greatest. Well, until next year.